The FDA says it is working to issue that emergency use authorization for Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine, and they are working to do it fast. Today's statement comes after an FDA advisory panel voted 17-4 with one abstention in favor of authorizing the vaccine. Now, immunizations for priority groups could begin within a matter of days. The agency will review a second vaccine candidate from Moderna next week. We need to be very clear about what is happening in this country. This has been the deadliest week of the pandemic so far. CDC Director Robert Redfield warned the virus could kill more Americans in the United States every day for the next 2 to 3 months than those who died in the attacks on 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. David Begnaud is in Los Angeles with more on the logistical challenges the vaccine rollout faces.
I have to tell you, in speaking with at least 2 major medical institutions here in California, including Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles, they are ready. They've got people on call, essentially, around the clock, waiting to find out when is that plane leaving with the vaccine vials on it. When is the truck arriving here at the hospital? They've got the freezer ready to go. I mean, super cold, below zero temperature freezer that they can stuff it into. They've got employees whose names are already on the list with appointments, ready to be vaccinated and get back to work. We are one step away from that final green light here in this country with an all go on the vaccine. And it all started with that hearing yesterday.
We must demonstrate that the vaccine is highly effective.
That was the topic of discussion that dominated the nearly 9-hour-long discussion by experts on the FDA's Independent Advisory Committee on Vaccines.
The American public demands and deserves a rigorous, comprehensive, and independent review of the data.
Voted yes.
In a 17-4 vote with one abstention, they concluded that the Pfizer vaccine is safe and effective for emergency use for those 16 and older, even with recent concerns about allergic reactions in 2 healthcare workers in the United Kingdom.
I would not hesitate to get the vaccine. I've got a lot of allergies. I plan to get the vaccine.
That is Dr. Arnold Monto. He is the acting chair of that independent advisory committee. He says the vaccine needed to be at least 50% effective for it to receive the committee's recommendation.
This vaccine is in excess of 90%. That's almost a dream scenario.
Did you vote yes or no?
I voted yes enthusiastically.
Right now, hospitals nationwide are preparing to receive the first shipments of the vaccine, and that could happen as early as this weekend. This is the freezer inside of Los Angeles' Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where the vaccine will be kept.
Once we take the vaccine out of the freezer, we have 5 days in the refrigerator.
That's Rita Shane, Chief Pharmacy Officer here at Cedars-Sinai. She has reviewed the vaccine data, and she says reports about allergic reactions in the United Kingdom don't raise any alarm bells for her.
Allergic reactions are something that do occur with everything we take, even food, and the allergic reactions aren't as concerning as getting COVID, and so the focus is on keeping us safe.
So the FDA wants Pfizer to do some more studies when it comes to allergic reactions in patients. The vaccine will come with a warning telling people who are susceptible to severe allergic reactions, hey, heads up about this. But you know, in speaking with the head of pharmacy here at Cedars-Sinai, she said the annual flu shot comes with those kinds of warnings. So she is not fazed at all about that. Vlad and Anne-Marie, back to you.
David, thank you. So for more on this, let's bring in Dr. Bob Lahita. He's a professor of medicine at the New York Medical College and the chairman of medicine at St. Joseph University Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us. Doctor, let's start with its FDA panel's endorsement. That was one step, but what happens next?
What happens next is it's got emergency use authorization, and now it gets distributed. And believe me, our hospitals are all ready and prepared, much as David Begnaud found with Cedars-Sinai. We have the minus 80-degree freezers. Everyone that's an employee in the hospital is registered, particularly the nurses and doctors, and we're all lined up to get these shots ASAP. We will be getting them. We consider them very safe, and I personally am not upset and disturbed by a few allergic reactions. As that pharmacist said in California, we expect allergic reactions in some people. But if you're highly allergic, you should probably speak to your doctor before you get the shot. I mean, highly allergic. But for the average person, we're not too concerned. So we're moving forward. Big light at the end of the tunnel, Anne-Marie.
You know, Dr. Bob, I'm glad that you highlight that because I was thinking about my little nephew, Oliver, who is highly allergic to certain things, certain nuts and shellfish, and I wondered what this would mean. I mean, in other words, his entire family, my sister, my brother-in-law, his brother, would all get vaccinated, but maybe Ollie wouldn't be able to get vaccinated, and what would that mean? Does that mean that he is potentially exposed to the coronavirus? Does that mean that he can transmit it, or will there be a solution for him, somebody like him?
Well, Vlad, how old is Ollie?
He is 11.
Well, he's in the age group which is considered last to immunize, first of all, because anybody below the age of 18 is considered low risk. Most of those people are asymptomatic. Most of those children are asymptomatic, and most of those children are last on the list to get immunized. Just being allergic to peanuts and being allergic to a few other things does not prohibit the injection of this vaccine. This vaccine, remember, is not a protein. It's messenger RNA. So it's a little bit different. And it's not an attenuated virus. It's a particle, or basically nucleic acid of the virus that is being injected, a mirror image of the nucleic acid, which is RNA. So I'm not so concerned. But again, children have not been studied extensively in the clinical trials. Neither have pregnant women or those who are immunosuppressed on immunosuppression medication, say somebody being treated for cancer or an autoimmune disease.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we should clarify, too, that right now the FDA is not approving it for anyone under the age of 16. So it's 16 and over, right, which was a little bit of, which was what they actually spoke a lot about when they were taking a look at the material. Should it be 16 and over? Should it be 18 and over? They chose 16 and over. But health officials have warned of a brutal stretch of time in the pandemic, though. And sort of, you know, you're always trying to sort of balance the information you give people, because I don't want it to always be doom and gloom. But the reality of it is the vaccine is one thing, but really most of us can make a difference without the vaccine. It's going to be really tough between now and sort of the 2 or 3 weeks after the holidays. Can we just talk about, you know, what we're hearing? The nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, said that the U.S. could see some degree of normality by late 2021 if the majority of people get the vaccine. So what needs to be done in order to convince the public that they should get vaccinated?
A very good question, Anne Marie. And, you know, I tell all of my patients, and I tell our doctors to tell their patients, that they need to educate their patients on the safety of the vaccine. A lot of people don't even want to get the flu vaccine, which is mandated by all hospitals for their employees, and a lot of companies mandate it. This vaccine, this COVID vaccine, is not being mandated, and a lot of people are very frightened of vaccines in general. But when they see something new, they're particularly worried about the side effects, which are negligible, and the safety. The whole purpose of going through a committee at the Food and Drug Administration. Actually, it's gone through two committees. One is the oversight, and now it's the expert FDA committee, which met all day yesterday. And they go over everything, and it's extremely safe for people to take. And we need to educate people. You need to educate your viewers. We need to educate our patients. And, you know, there are two ways to get herd immunity, which is what we're really looking for. And that'll protect everybody. And that, number one, is to get infected, which we're doing masterfully well, where people are getting infected, whether they know it or not. And secondly, the vaccine. Preferably, the vaccine would be the way to achieve herd immunity, which means 70% of the population or more have to have antibodies and T cells, T lymphocyte responses.
So, Dr. Bob, a study published last week in the Journal of Korean Medical Science is now raising some concerns that the standard 6 feet of social distancing guidance may not be enough to keep people safe. One participant was found to have been infected because a droplet carrying the virus was small enough to travel 20 feet through the air. I mean, that is more than this camera that's placed in front of me. And that's a little scary, because one of the things that I've noticed, Dr. Bob and Anne Marie, throughout the course of this pandemic, I've become more cognizant of droplets from my mouth. In other words, I don't think I'm abnormal that I sometimes see little droplets flying out of my mouth when I'm talking, certainly when I'm jogging in the park. But 20 feet sounds like it's a really great distance, and so it makes me a little concerned.
Yes, that is very concerning, Vlad. I read that report, and I have to tell you that we kind of suspected that. I was talking about droplets going 12 to 13 feet back in May. And here we have a study which is really well done, showing that the droplets would go greater than 20 feet, which is extraordinary. And they studied airflow in this restaurant. It was in the restaurant. All the more reason not to go and eat indoors. And they used anemometers to measure wind current and found that this poor person was sitting under an air conditioning vent, and the other infected person that had the droplets was on the other side of the room, about 20 feet away, which is quite a distance. And apparently the droplet was 50 microns in diameter, which is very small, but carried enough virus to have a viral load that infected the poor fellow. Other people who were with their backs to the air conditioning system were not infected. But this gentleman was, because his face was facing the airflow, which they measured, and that's pretty amazing. So you have to have the droplet size has to be good, and these people were not wearing masks, and they were indoors in a restaurant. So that's very worrisome, and it indicates that you really have to be careful and take nothing for granted.
Yeah, and you know, Dr. Bob, we have to say goodbye, but the sort of really interesting thing about that study is, like, look at all the detail you were able to provide us about where people were standing, how many people were in the restaurant. That all has to do with contact tracing. That's what you can do when you have really excellent contact tracing. You can paint this really specific picture about how the virus moves and then tweak the restrictions based on that data. I'm just saying that because I know contact tracing has been a challenge here in this country. Dr. Bob Lahita, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.